Dorothea, for years you've combined science and art using astrophysics, astronomy, mathematics, physics. Where did this intense interest in science come from?
Well, actually, I think that that's always been an interest of art, not just mine. But now it's known that when Van Gogh did Starry Night, it was specific to that night because with the new astronomy programs, they could go back to original dates, and the sky on that night was the sky on that night, and clearly from his letters he was interested in astronomy. But beyond that, if you go to the Renaissance and even the Egyptians, there's always a combination of art, of science and math.
And for you, when did this begin, this mathematical curiosity, this exploration?
When I arrived at Black Mountain College, which was a very avant-garde arts college in North Carolina, it doesn't exist anymore. It was in many ways an offshoot of the Bauhaus, so there was a lot of European influence there, although it had started in America a long time, in 1933 or something like that. But when I arrived there, very quickly after I arrived, I met the mathematics teacher whose name was Max Dane, and he's a famous mathematician who knew Einstein. Einstein spent summers at Black Mountain, and there's some teachers that I've had who are so in love with their subject, it becomes infectious. And somehow or other, over a lunch or something, he picked up the fact that I probably asked a question or two that I was interested in math, and he suggested that I take his course, and I said, I can't take it because all of the mathematics I've had have been really stupid. And he said, doesn't matter, I'll teach you what you need to know. And so we began this great relationship where we took a walk every morning for an hour or so, maybe less, and he explained mathematics and nature to me. Yes, so for instance, like the relationship of the root system of a tree or a plant like this to what's on top, and how that, and he also, in those days, he was explaining probability theory, which really led into chaos theory, but he gave me all of the basic things that I didn't have, and some very advanced things, tools to be able to use mathematics as an artist. He was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. I can't tell you. But all the people who were in his class, I mean, Black Mountain was very small. So that means there were probably about 5 students in the class and me. They were all there just to study with him. I mean, he was really renowned.
But some of those students have a rather large name value. And who were they, Dorothea?
Well, I don't remember the names of the mathematics students, but of course the other art students were Rauschenberg and Cy Twombly and and so on.
Is it possible to depict the relationship of space to time?
That's the trick I've been playing with a lot for a long time. That's the fourth dimension, is of course, the people who are working on dimensional space, the last time I looked, a lot of it's happening at Rutgers, and they were up to 12 dimensions, but I don't, I'm just trying to depict time as well as, and it's, I don't want to use any formulas. It's, the seat of my pants. How can you put time into a painting?
If you were to have to define the word time as you use it, how would you?
I think I can answer that better by saying the ways in which I've used it. In the Sony murals, there are 2 murals which face each other, and they're 29 by 30 feet. and they're in the Sony building on Madison, between 55th and 56th. Well, one is depicting the energy field as best as I could wing it in the northern sky, and the others in the southern sky. And even though you may be looking this way, your conscious peripheral vision has a lot to do with things in my work, where you look and how you look. So even though you may be looking here, you're aware of what's on the other side of the room. And while they're different, there's an interaction. So, you know, that's a tricky use of time.
Does spiritualism enter into your work at all?
For me, formalized religion is an anti-religious experience. That it is in the way. And that making art, because you're tapping into an energy that isn't normally available, I don't want to say it's religion or spiritual. I don't know the right word, but sure as hell is great. You know, I mean, it's something in that area somewhere, you know, that is quite a remarkable experience. I think there is a commonality of experience that we as human beings all share. And I think one can get at it in dance and film and a lot of different ways. The reason painting holds my interest so much is that I can find things out in paintings that I don't know any other way. I can find knowledge, emotions, a kind of mirror, a lot of things. I am very aware of time. I'm very aware of the short time that we have to live. I'm very aware of my body and how it works. And that goes into thinking about the nature of nature. So, in a sense, I'd like to talk about color and the way that I've used color. I've always used it as though I were using, although I'm using, you know, commercial colors like everybody else, but I've always used it as though I'm actually grinding pigment and using the elements of the earth. It's the way I've used it, and I have an understanding of how that's all done. So, since I have an École de Beaux-Arts background from when I was a kid. And that gets into what I'm trying to do right now, which is, I mean, I haven't actually begun this work in earnest, but I'm interested in copper. And I have been for a while. And I'm interested in copper because, and in this organic way, because part of our hemoglobin is copper. One of the elements in the universe, you know, when they're looking through spectroscopes and so on, is copper. One of the early colors that the Egyptians used was copper. Burned copper, you know, you treat it, and if you just leave it in the elements, it becomes green, and if you keep on going, you get blue. So what I'm interested in right now, which I haven't, as I said, begun in earnest yet, is four-dimensional space using a kind of blue paint which is arrived at from copper on copper, and also treating the copper. But that also goes back to my early beginnings of grinding my own pigments, and all of those things. So it's all, and mathematics is all part of it, because if you understand the energies of the earth and in the universe, what the sun is doing, and those energies, and why things, volcanoes occur, and what the nearness of Mars to the Earth right now is, and all of those things, a lot of that can be explained in the mathematics of chaos theory, as I'm sure you know. You know, it's all the same thing. I mean, the earth has energies and so on. So it's all one and the same thing. And I'm trying to be receptive and poke around. I mean, I'm not a great mathematician and I'm not a great scientist in spite of what Lynn is saying. You know, I know more than the average Joe because that's what I have done with my life, but I don't know what the people at Caltech know. I don't. And I don't know what mathematicians kind of laugh at me indulgently as though you may think you're doing mathematics, but I actually am. I'm just not doing something that interests them to know about because they don't know about painting.
Because I remember your great interest when you were in Los Angeles about getting into Caltech and
Yes.
and JPL.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
And that never worked out, so
Never
you have to
succeeded.
come back because now I think I have an entree.
Oh, wow, okay.
You said something earlier. You're involved with the blue on copper, and you said something. You learning how to treat the copper. What does that mean? What is the process?
Well, I'm just now finding that out. I'm just beginning to talk to copper finishers. You know, if there's a way to treat copper with a kind of ammonia, a powdered ammonia, which is strong, and then you can get it to be flaky green automatically. And then the process is, you know, then if you get it to be flaky green, you know, first of all, how do I not kill myself with fumes? And secondly, you know, how do you then stabilize that and paint on top of it and so on? And also salt in vinegar. So I'm just going to begin these tests soon.
And what does that do to the copper? Does it make the pigment affix itself easier?
It erodes and chemically changes the surface.
Aha.
You know, when you see a copper dome
Yeah.
in Europe, it'll always be green, and that's from, you know, the salt in the air and so on.
Uh-huh.
And now they finish it with some kind of something, so it never does more than brown as a rule in America anyway. But it's going through that range that I like.
Dorothea, when you talk about copper being in the blood,
Yes.
and being a strong element in the earth, again, the boundaries of your work dissolve.
Yes.
It brings together us organically, the earth organically
Yes.
one.
I'd like to be able to make work that, in a sense, is totally transparent, not physically transparent, but emotionally and structurally, so that when you look at it, you go right through the middle of the earth and the universe. From his letters, he was interested in astronomy. But beyond that, if you go to the Renaissance and even the Egyptians, there's always a combination of art, of science and math.
And for you, when did this begin, this mathematical?
Did Starry Night. It was, you know, specific to that night because with the new astronomy programs, they could go back to the original dates. And the sky on that night was the sky on that night, and clearly
Come from?
well, actually, I think that that's always been an interest of art, not just mine. But, you know, now it's known that when Van Gogh
Dorothea, for years you've combined science and art using astrophysics, astronomy, mathematics, physics. Where did this intense interest in science